Yo, what is up guys, Delboy here, aka Blue Collar Sports TV. Hopefully you guys are doing well. If you're new here, smash that like, hit subscribe, all of that good stuff. So the weekend coming up isn't particularly stacked in regards to boxing. However, Tszyu is defending his WBO Super Welterweight title against Brian Mendoza. Fight goes down on the 15th of October and it takes place in Australia. Pretty good title defense for Tszyu. Brian Mendoza is coming off his career best win over Sebastian Fundora. At one point in time, Sebastian Fundora was one of the leading contenders at 154. Brian Mendoza knocked him out in his last fight. Not only that, he also recently beat former unified champion, Jason Rosario. So, you know, Brian Mendoza is coming off good form, he's coming off some good wins. And I fully expect him to leave it all on the line in this fight, I really do. Tough guy, hard worker, you know, start of his career, he wasn't really considered as a top prospect or anything like that. But he's fought his way through to a good position, and now he gets his shot. As for Tszyu, he is the world champion, he's the WBO Super Welterweight champion. For some reason, I've seen some people cry about that Jermell Charlo was stripped. This is the reality and the only way to look at it. Tszyu worked his way to a mandatory position within the WBO. He then agreed to fight Jermell Charlo, the undisputed champion. It was signed, it was agreed. Charlo gets injured, and then he signs to fight Canelo. Tszyu fulfilled his obligation, he signed up for it, it never happened, so why should he not be the champion? You know, defend or vacate, as Tony Ferguson once said. So for me, Tszyu is the rightful WBO champion. I'll get that out of the way right now. It's not like Tszyu was the cause of that fight not happening. It wasn't Tszyu's fault. And yes, I don't blame Charlo for getting the Canelo bag, but, you know, everything comes at a price. You can't have it all your own way. Tszyu is the champion within the WBO at 154. But Tszyu, I followed his career since the start basically. If you've been following this channel long enough, I've been covering Tszyu for a long time. And I have to be honest, he's a fighter who's really impressed me. Not just in regards to his ability right now, what he brings to the table, but the work rate, the willingness to learn, the willingness to get out of his dad's shadow. You know, early in Tszyu's career, he looked a little shaky. I always saw raw potential, hence why I've covered him for so long. But he had flaws in his game. He got dropped in one of his early fights, I remember. But the way he's come on in recent years has really been remarkable. It's been a testament to good training, to good matchmaking, you know, giving young fighters the fights they need at that specific time in their careers. Tszyu's been matched really well, and when I say that, I don't mean he's been given puddings or cream puffs. He's been incrementally stepped up each and every time, and now we see Tszyu at world level, and he's really doing well. Also, what I liked about Tszyu, after the Charlo fight fell through, you know, due to Charlo's injury then, the hand injury, whatever it was, Tszyu could have easily said, I'm not going to do anything, I'm going to sit on the sidelines until Charlo gets back fit. If he did that, he would have wasted so much time because Charlo went on to fight Canelo. Instead, Tszyu remained active. He remained active. You know, he fought Tony Harrison, a former unified champion, a guy who beat Jermell Charlo. And by the way, people at the time were saying that's a risky fight to take for Tszyu given his position. But he took it anyway and stopped Tony Harrison in a really good performance. He then fought Carlos Ocampo, Not a great fighter by any means. I get it. but a guy who's tough, who's resolute, who gave Fundora a really hard fight. He blitzes Carlos Ocampo. I like the fact that Tszyu hasn't allowed boxing politics to get in the way of his career, because there are so many soft, soy fighters right now who would just sit out on the sidelines just waiting for their shot. Not fighting, not improving, not staying active. Tszyu could have easily done that, but he never, so I like that about Tszyu. And I think that's why he's been successful. The matchmaking, like I said, has been great. He's been relatively active, and now he's a world champion. I make him a big favourite stylistically over Brian Mendoza. Tszyu to me has got a much better jab. He's a much better judge of distance, better footwork, better positioning. I think overall he's got far superior punch technique. He can time you in between your punches, and I think that's important against a guy like Brian Mendoza. Mendoza, tough guy, good chin, comes to fight, comes to bring it. He applies pressure, but primarily he's throwing wide, looping shots to body and head. Whereas Tszyu's more of a sharpshooter. He's a boxer puncher slash counter puncher slash puncher. I think his style matches up really well with Brian Mendoza. I think Brian Mendoza, given his style, given his natural desire to come forwards, I think that's going to give Tszyu all of the openings he needs, straight down the pipe, jab straight right, to land those shots and make Mendoza's aggression work against him. Like I said, Mendoza is a tough guy, so I can easily see him hanging around for a few rounds. But ultimately, I just believe his style is tailor-made for Tszyu. I believe Tszyu gets to Brian Mendoza, and I believe Tszyu stops Brian Mendoza. The only reservation I have is when it happens. I think Mendoza is tough enough to make it into the second half, but after that point, I think you'll start to see him ship some real heavy punishment. I think I'll say Tszyu stoppage in rounds 8, 9 or 10, in and around those rounds. Mendoza is a solid fighter, like I said, tough guy. I respect how he's, restructured his career after a couple of losses. Again, he was never one of the chosen ones. I respect how he's, made a name for himself. And that's admirable, but yeah, I see Tszyu winning this fight comfortably, to be honest. From a stylistic perspective, I see Tszyu dominating. I see him winning the majority of rounds, and I see him knocking out Brian Mendoza. As I said, in and around 8, 9 or 10, rounds 8, 9 or 10. But yeah, regardless, I am still looking forward to it. I like Tszyu's style. I like Brian Mendoza, to be honest. I like Brian Mendoza, but yeah. Share your thoughts below. Maybe some of you guys are giving Mendoza a better shot than I am. I do see a couple of people picking the upset. Fair play. We shall see. We shall see. Anyway, share your thoughts below. Beanie Guy Delboy. Peace.